Susan Springsteen through the world of dressage horses, but what I found out about Susan today, besides her humble disposition, is that she is not only the president of H2O Connected and partner in Nth Solutions company, but she's a trailblazer for women in technology, creating jobs and inspiring others through her Christian faith. She's creating a tech hub in a place not regularly synonymous with technology, the suburbs of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Susan keeps things very real when advising on business, that it's not always going to be cupcakes and rainbows. Now, let's get to business. Hello everyone, my name is Tatiana Ryan and I am your host of the Businessy Podcast. Today I have with me the president of H2O Connected and partner of Nth Solutions company, trailblazer for women in technology and dressage queen, Susan Springsteen. Hello, Susan.
Hi, Tatiana. It's great to speak with you.
It's been a while since we've spoken, and I initially met you through the equine community, through dressage. I was dabbling a bit, came out to your farm. We did a little yoga. We saw the barn and everything. But tell us what it was like growing up with you and horses and where you're at.
Okay. I was horse nut as long as I can remember. None of my family rode, so I was the first one in the family to just go nuts about horses. And it's just been a passion. And my first sales job was to sell my parents the idea on riding lessons at the local riding school. So I came up as a barn rat. I took lessons once a week and then twice a week and, hung out and tried to do, volunteer to work around the barn for riding time and rode everything no one else would ride. I grew up riding most horses nobody else wanted to get on. So it doesn't give you the most classical position in the world, but it does make you effective. And then after college, I wanted to get my riding instructor's license. And there was a place in Pennsylvania near where I lived that had a 9-month instructor training course, and it was a 3-day event oriented, so it was dressage and jumping and cross country, and so I took that. But one of the things I did as a kid, I had a buddy that was also a horse nut, and we used to we'd read. There was not a lot of dressage instruction around at the time, not like there is today. So we would get dressage books. We knew we wanted to be dressage riders, and we would just lunge each other for seat and position and try and help each other out. It was really a great way to grow up. So I was able to be, more serious after college, even though I knew I could never do it as my career. I realized early on that I wasn't good enough to be a professional right out of college, and that if I wanted to be good, it was going to take a lot of money, and I needed to make that money elsewhere. So I did.
Now, you started your professional career in the financial sector. When did you decide you wanted to go from finance into technology and innovation?
I didn't really have any great plan. It's funny. I got into the finance world really by accident. I met someone who wanted to hire a administrative person or an analyst for his corporate finance division of an investment bank. And this was in the early 80s. So I just said, okay, fine, I'll try this. And I did. And I liked the deal making side of it, so he taught me how to analyze the deals. I ended up going through, I was in Philadelphia. It was a 200-year-old investment bank. So the company had a corporate finance department, a municipal finance department, a money management department, research. It was really sort of a one-stop shop. And I was able to get my fingers in the middle of most of those different pots or most of those different avenues. And so it was a great way to oversee, really get a feel for what goes on in the investment world. And then I knew I like deals, I like putting things together for a better result. And so I was able to get involved in corporate finance tangentially, but I stayed in the money management realm. And I just stayed in that for 25 years. And then within that, I did KYW News Radio business reports for 10 years and did a lot of speaking. And within all that, people started to ask me business strategy questions, not just about running money, but about running their business or, how to improve the bottom line. And I realized that if I was going to give them advice, I needed to walk in their shoes. Because, and so I thought I need to put money at risk in a small business where I can have an operational role. And at that time, I wanted to stay in the finance world, and I just wanted to kind of have this on the side. And through church, I met my business partner. He was just he was a product development genius and had a really deep knowledge base of intellectual property, had been quite successful with developing commercialized products. And so his company was going through a restructuring. So we bought the contents of his office and started Nth Solutions to be a product development, business incubation, and manufacturing company. So we've always had a mission of Made in the USA, because at the time we co-founded it in 2006, and at the time lots of manufacturing was going overseas. It was the big wave overseas, and we wanted to keep electronic manufacturing here in any small way that we could. So we make today, even today, Nth Solutions makes its electronic products right here in Coatesville in the United States, and then over time. They both finance and solutions were taking so much time, I had to make a decision. And by that time, I really wanted to go into the technology development full time. So it was an evolution. That's a long-winded answer.
No, that's a great answer, because you came from a very male-dominated industry in finance, where you started at the bottom and worked your way up, and then you moved into in technology, another very male-dominated, technology, but you're in construction industry and water technology. And you also have patents in the auto industry, which are all very male-dominated. What do you see as a woman evolving for women coming into these new areas?
I think for me, it wasn't a big deal, partially because, and it's much better now. In the 80s, in the investment world, it was not easy. I would be one of 60 people, one female in an office of 60 guys. Mm-hmm. But I think before that, I think what helped me is in the horse world, in the international world, the horse sports are the only thing where men and women compete as equals. You don't have a men's team and a women's team. You have the equestrian team, you have the dressage team, the show jumping team, the eventing team, and they're mixed. And so just as a kid growing up, I never had any of that thought that men did this and women did this. In my mind, we all did whatever. And so when I got into the investment world, I knew that I was butting up against, challenges. I mean, to be honest, a lot of the guys weren't thrilled when the chicks showed up. I wasn't part of their boys club. I wasn't going to do business at strip clubs. It just wasn't going to work that way. But little by little, you just if you just keep doing high quality work, you get respected, and they have to. Yeah, they have to let you in the door. And when I first started in the investment world, a woman couldn't go into the Union League, the Racket Club, the Philadelphia Club, the Vesper Club without being accompanied by a man. And these were where a lot of business was done. So, and instead of just pounding the table and being militant about it, I thought, I could really, complain, but I'd win the battle and lose the war. So I thought, why don't I just become really successful in these areas and become an ally, and sooner or later it'll work. And while I was in Philadelphia, certainly the Union League, and they all went sort of co-ed. And I don't really care if guys have their own clubs. Let women have their own clubs. Sometimes guys just need to be around guys. We don't have to be. Not everything has to be available to us. So. But anyway, and then it's interesting. I've started quite a few businesses, so I'm a serial entrepreneur, and I think it's now 4% of investment, independent third-party investment goes to female founders. It's a very, very small percentage. And so I'm trying to change that. But again, it's partly because there haven't been as many female. Until really the last two generations, there haven't been a lot of female founders. Because it's very hard if you want to have a family and you want to have other things that roles that typically women have. It's very hard to start an early stage tech company, anything that will scale. I mean, you can start if you want to have a bakery or you want to have, and nothing wrong with that. That's great. But those are things that, but if you want to start a technology company and try and make it a global brand, that's a time, it's just reality. It's only 24 hours in a day. So it takes time, but it's much easier now, and much, much easier now.
Now, seeing, as you said, with the finance aspect of technology also, and seeing a lot of these women taking, people in general also, as you just said, founding these technology companies, this stuff doesn't happen overnight.
No.
Like dedicating hours and hours and hours a day to just one idea, like what kind of advice do you give someone who is thinking of that?
That's an interesting question. I get asked that quite a lot. I think you need to make sure you need to know what your end game is. Is your end game to build a business that just sort of supports your family? And is it going to be a side hustle? Is this something you really think can scale? That you want to sell to a private equity firm someday, or another company? Is this something you want to hand off to your kids? Is it a lifestyle business that just helps create family lifestyle, or is it, something that's larger than that? So, but if you want to scale and you want a bigger company, you need to make sure whatever it is, the service or product that you're doing really has a large enough market. And who is going to be your distribution? Are you going to build out distribution? Are you going to sell it through stores? Are you going to sell it through resellers? And can you sell it with enough margin in it for you and the tiers of distribution? Does it make sense to patent if it's a product? Does it make sense to patent it, or is it trade secrets? There's a lot of things that you need to think about. And then one of the things is if you're married, is your spouse on board? Because I have watched
a big one.
Our relationships implode because of early stage companies and work. And and people romanticize entrepreneurs right now. It's the thing to do, right? They glorify the guy who's started from nothing and is worth billions of dollars. There's a price that goes along with that, and they don't talk about that. And especially as a woman, we're wired differently. There's an involvement and a fulfillment with what we do with our children. And I'm not saying guys don't, but we're definitely wired differently. And you're gonna miss out on a lot if you're the one that's growing this business. So you need to make sure that the rest of the family's on board. I could go on about other things. It is going to take 5 times as much money and 5 times as long as you could possibly imagine, from start to sort of predictable profitability. So you need to really think about it. It's not easy, but there's lots of positives too, and it's not just money. You can impact the community. You can impact people's lives as a business owner in ways you can't as someone who works for somebody else. If you're signing the front of a paycheck, you can, rather than the back. There are different responsibilities, but there's also a lot more you can do to impact people's lives. So there are positives to it.
Well, let's talk about your community, as you are very community oriented. And Coatesville, Pennsylvania isn't exactly a place that people think of when they talk about technology. You'll think about Silicon Valley. You think about Austin, Texas, these big tech giants. But Coatesville is budding. So
yet they don't think about Coatesville yet. Coatesville is it's an amazing city. It's the only city in Chester County. It dates back to the 1600s. I think the city itself as a city was made a city in 1910, but its history goes back to, the steel mill that's continuously operating. But it was one of those steel towns that fell on hard times, when things happened, when steel problems happened in the steel industry, what a steel plant that was hiring, had 5,000 people working there went to 400 employees. So the town fell on really hard times, a lot of homelessness, a lot of poverty, crime, and so it's been turning around for the last several years, and it was designated one of the opportunity zones by our governor. So in 2017, the job cuts, the tax job, I always get it confused. Anyway, the Tax Act of 2017 actually brought out this Qualified Opportunity Zone initiative, which gave people who renovated or bought and renovated real estate or had companies in these zones had certain tax benefits. But you have to be there 10 years, so you have to be a part of the community. And so when we started H2O Connected, I wanted to make it a Qualified Opportunity Zone business. Coatesville was the QOZ for Chester County. So I went looking at it, and I remember thinking, there is no way I'm ever going to be here. But I just fell in love with the people. They all had a story, and they just, they had nothing. A lot of them had nothing, and yet they took care of each other. They were trying to make it a better place. The history around here is amazing, the architecture, the history. And so we decided to move here, and we've gotten very involved in the community. Our products are made by returning citizens and those in recovery from Coatesville. So we're trying to use manufacturing to help people turn their lives around. And that's something you can do as an owner. As a manager, you have to hire the most productive person you can. As an owner, I can hire somebody who's trying to turn their life around. So, and then we just, we get involved where needs are. It's not, I can't say I have any great plan, but, the more you get involved in the community, the more they tell you what they need, rather than me having to guess. And I've made tremendous connections with the city, with the other nonprofits in the area, with community leaders, and we've just little by little, we'll have, and the trains, we're building a new train station. We're not, the city is building a new train station. And so we're going to have regional rail when the train station's done next year, which will be a huge benefit for the cities because you can go directly into Philadelphia. And we are a hub of Philly. So my thought was, I'd love to make this like a little Silicon Valley of Chester County, because we are 45 minutes by train into Philadelphia. We can be a hub of Philly. It's a lot cheaper to live here. Parking is $1 an hour as opposed to like 30. It's just, you can get around, the history's great, and the city, we've got a great police force, where a lot of community policing, crime's way down. It's just, it's a really great place if you're looking to grow and be a part of something larger than yourself. Coatesville's a great place.
You had mentioned the history of Coatesville, but also that you are a part of a lot of the associations and possibly part of the legislative decisions that are made because of what you're growing there. You had brought up some of the people will tell you what they need. How do you deal with a lot of, the community coming together and saying, okay, I need to switch off from, the past of what Coatesville was to the future of what Coatesville is going to be, as you just said, getting all those associations and groups, and especially you deal with the youth a lot. Tell us about that.
Well, that's a couple different questions.
Yeah, sorry.
Trying to get people comfortable with change is probably the biggest issue. They're used to people coming in making promises and nothing ever happens. So there's a trust factor that we had to build and continue to build. I mean, I think there's a good trust factor here between me and my group and the legacy community, but that could all disappear in a second if I stub my toe. So, because a lot of people came in, made promises they didn't keep. Mm-hmm. And so it's earned. The distrust is earned. There's also a lot of just really, just fear. Are they going to be able to afford the higher price? Already property values are going up because they are everywhere. And so people are getting forced out. Are they going to be able to live in Coatesville? Coatesville is unique in that almost everybody's related. So if somebody has to leave, it affects 20 other families. So it's very different that way. And so so there is a fear of the future. And then there are other people in the community. They're really trying to grab the brass ring, and they're taking advantage of all the mentorship programs and first-time home buyer programs and home repair programs. There's a lot of help for people in Coatesville now, and not just through me, through a lot of things that are totally independent of me. But so there's lots of folks that are all pulling in the same direction. But I think there's still a fear of people, their confidence. And then the other thing that I don't know how to fix this, but I'd love to figure it out. When you have quite a few people, you have the majority of families here on some kind of public assistance. The problem is, as they start to make more money, they lose their public assistance, but they're not making enough money to replace what they're losing. And they're used to getting this check from the government. And they're like, if I give that up and then I get fired, what happens? There's this, we call it the benefits cliff. It's where the benefits start to fall off, and so they're scared to get beyond that. And so they kind of put limitations on themselves. As they start to get raises, or they go back to school and they get raises, they make more money, then they start going part-time because they're afraid to go above a certain limit because they're going to lose their SNAP or Medicaid or whatever. We provide health care, and I've had a lot of our employees that don't want it because they have to pay for part of it, and they'd rather stay on Medicaid. So, I have ideas, but they're a little radical, and they're going to take somebody besides me. I mean, I know all my local legislators, but I'm not going to go waltzing into the White House and tell Trump what to do. So, so one step at a time. But that is a big, big issue that needs to be solved because And the other thing that needs to be solved that I don't have anything related to, it's a big cause of problems here, is father absence. Again, I think 70% of the households here are single moms.
Really?
And either there is no father in the picture or only limited. And father absence is just, it just kills, especially for young boys, So I think they're 7 times as likely to end up in prison if you have a young son with father absence. Because moms try as they can, but there's all these. So those are things that have to be fixed through the community and community help. And it's hard. It's hard. There's a lot of different things that are feeding into the problems. So, and you can't just throw money at it. There's support and education, and so it's exhausting, but this community is worth the effort, absolutely worth the effort.
Now, you brought up your beliefs and the community and single moms, and there's only so many hours in a day that people can do things. But you were just highlighted in the book, Threads of Wisdom, Trailblazer by Carolyn Mendez. The book follows a professional journey of 15 Christian businesswomen, CEOs, you were one of them, in a time of, as you just said, such confusion of, religious views and their beliefs and families falling apart and kids being brought up without parents. Like, how do you hold steadfast to your beliefs? And we can do this, even though there's only so many hours a day, we've got tomorrow, Well,
I think the thing to realize, everybody has a belief system. Mm-hmm. What we do and everything we do, think, and say stems from what we believe and to the degree that we believe it. And there's kind of 4 key areas that forms our worldview. So origin, where did the planet come from? Where did we come from? Meaning, why am I here? Morality, what is my basis for right and wrong? And destiny, what happens to me when I die? What people believe in those areas really forms their worldview, and and how they view the world, how they treat other people, how they treat their job, how they treat philanthropy, how they treat their free time, everything about who we are, how we rate, kind of, in my opinion, from what I can see, stems back to that sort of way we view. And for me, those four key areas coalesce at the cross. I'm a Christian. I follow Christ, and people confuse religion with especially in the Christian world, like religion, the way I see it, it's not the rules and regs and the rituals. While that can be part of someone's faith, it's really my belief that, Christ is the Son of God. We've sinned. We're separated from God. It's his death and resurrection and our belief in that and following that allows us to be connected, to restore that connection with God through him. And the way I stay grounded in it, really, it's like any relationship. You got to spend time on it. So you spend time reading the Bible. I've listened. I spend time, just understanding the nuances of what the Bible says from Old Testament to New Testament and who Christ is. And it's the only faith I've found that is backed up by science and history. I always get a kick out of it when science finally catches up with the Bible. Mm-hmm. And they're constantly finding artifacts that prove that that something happened that the world said never happened. Mm-hmm. So mm-hmm. I always get a kick out of that. So anyway, but it's just staying grounded and staying connected to it and having friends that share my belief system. I have prayer partners. I have people I meet with. We share our prayer requests, and we know we're praying for each other. There is nothing like a relationship with Christ. Mm-hmm. And it changes, for me, it changes the way I look at things, in that part of my business and here, it's not just a career, it's a calling. And when something is a calling, you have an ability to stick with it a little bit better, I think. If it's a job, or if I'm just after it for the money, if I'm just after it because I want to someday sell the company for 10 times what I have in it. And a lot of my investors want me to do that. So that's not the entire underlying goal. I mean, I can the impact and the connection I have with people and the seats at the table that I get because of what I do enables me to help so many other people that I never would be able to do otherwise. And so it's all a part of a calling. And I get a lot of questions like, how do you keep going when you've got all these things like shooting at you, mm-hmm. And then that gives me a chance to talk about my belief system. So it's not something I force on everybody, but I'm always willing to talk about it.
Can I ask one question? Because there is a total archetype about one of the characters in the Bible who is a very important factor for Jesus' success. It was Mary Magdalene and all of that. And, there were so many different stigmas against her, I guess, back then, and so many names called, and even throughout history. Being someone who was possibly in her shoes of, some have said she was a fishing magnate and things of that sort. There are different, you go into different, Bible studies, people say different things. So, but being a woman in your shoes, as you said, having things fired at you, how have you handled that with your belief?
Well, you have to look at the times. Mm-hmm. I mean, just think of what Mary, the mother of Jesus, had to go through. She's probably about 15 years old. She's betrothed, but not married. And here she's pregnant. Now, the angel came to her, explained what was going to happen. And she said, let it be to me as it said. So she trusted God. But here's in a society where premarital sex or adultery was punishable by death. So I mean, one of the things that for Mary Magdalene, I look at what the Bible says. Mm-hmm. I don't try and read in to something that's not there. So I know that she was certainly a close follower of his. I think she was the first one he saw after his resurrection. And but Christ loved genders equally, and it was radical in those days because women had the value of a cow in those days in all the different cultures. So, and he actually revealed who he was as the Messiah to a woman at the well, and a woman who had been with 5 husbands, and the one she was living with was not her husband. So, technically she could have been stoned, and yet, he loved her, and she certainly became a follower of his. But so he treated women, he elevated women in a way that was very unusual for that culture, and still does all throughout the Bible. Men and women are equal in the eyes of God, and so is every race, every skin color. We're all equal. God does not look on the outside as far as gender or skin color or ethnic group. It's all on the inside, and that's something that society tries to sort of, I think, push aside. But that's and there are religions that have added their own rules, but that's not the way Christ intended it. You have to look at what did Christ say, and it was very much gender equal.
Now, when I've met you and came out to your farm, we did a yoga class. So you have a very good balance of keeping your mental and physical health aligned. What do you do at those busy times where things are getting a little bit frazzled?
I go for walks. I don't ride anymore, although I've been thinking about getting back into it. A year ago, I gave up the riding. I used to ride literally 5 days a week. I couldn't. I just ran out of time. And I stopped competing several years ago. But I still do Pilates 2 to 3 times a week, and fortunately, my office is on the 4th floor of a building, and I'm up and down the stairs all the time, so that helps. But mostly, sometimes I just need to go out for a walk. And when I was in the city, if I was having a really bad day, when I used to work in Philadelphia, I'd grab a fistful of quarters and go put quarters in expired parking meters that had cars on them. So
that was you.
And I would start to imagine somebody frazzled coming back to their car and then watching and saying, oh, I have 15 more minutes. How did that happen? But it made me feel so good that whatever was bothering me went away. So that's where I learned that if I'm really having a bad day, I need to go do something nice for somebody else. So that's what I do.
Now, your endeavors are not only thriving, but you're expanding. You're creating jobs for people. You're creating purpose for people. What goes through your mind while the process happens of giving someone a job, giving them purpose, giving them another reason to either put down the bottle, put down the drugs, do, whatever, and giving them something else to look forward to on a daily basis?
It's a big part of why we're here. It's not as simple as that, though. I mean, first of all, they have to be in recovery, and I can't take someone that's still, that I know of, has an addiction, because that could be too big of a problem within the company. And we work with OIC, we work with our legislators to get referrals to come in here, folks that have gone through a mentorship program for reentry. So we do that. And then, I mean, it's very rewarding but a lot of them sometimes, I would say the majority of them, unfortunately, right now don't stay. And I think they are excited, they want to work. And then after week 4, 5, or 6, it's work. It's not, they're putting legal errors together. It's work. They have a shot, but then they maybe won't show up, or they won't play nice in the sandbox. So, and that's been discouraging, but we keep trying. And then there are the ones that have really done well and have had multiple raises and learned lots of skills, and they'll either stay with us and grow. There's one nice thing about having, several early stage companies is hopefully they grow, and then they need more people, and we like to hire from within. So they grow and then, or they go get a better job somewhere else and now they can feed their families and get off public assistance. And, they can start to, we've had people start here that are still in shelters that now are in, now are in a home, and people who, were on parole that now are off parole, they've made it. I mean, those are big life accomplishments.
Mhm.
So, I try and help keep them focused on what, what's the next dream? Like, what's the next goal? So
Right.
they realize that, there's more to be had. Unfortunately, a lot of folks that are in that position when they come to us, and even, they're surrounded by people that aren't healthy for them.
Mhm.
If they have a drug problem, their dealers are still in the area. The dealers are trying to get them to come back, and so they have to be careful what route they take to work, so they don't have
Mhm.
to go by certain corners.
Mhm.
And there's just and sometimes they just have a lot of family issues that I just can't even imagine, that
Mhm.
they're constantly dealing with. So even just to keep showing up for work on time, day after day after day, is an enormous accomplishment for them. In some ways, I can't even imagine how some people live the way they live. And because of the situation they're in. No, yes, maybe they made bad decisions early on, but what they have to dig themselves out of is just really, it's heartbreaking sometimes.
Mhm.
Yeah, but it's great when it works. It doesn't always work, but it's like what was it, the story about the little boy walking along the seashore with thousands of starfish and he's throwing them back into the sea. And a man coming the other way says, "You're never going to make a difference." And he picked one up and he threw it back and he said, "I made a difference to that one."
Mhm.
That's kind of how I feel.
Yeah.
I probably am not going to scratch make any big statistical difference about poverty in Coatesville or homelessness or drug abuse in Coatesville, but
Mhm.
just hopefully we'll make a difference to individuals so their lives are better and then their kids' lives are better and then their kids' lives are better. And so I am not responsible for the world. I just need to do what the Lord puts in front of me. I need to be obedient, let him do the heavy lifting.
Well, you're doing a lot because it's not only those people, but you're helping a lot of people with the technology yourself. So
Yeah.
tell us about H2O Connected and Nth Solutions and what exactly they do.
Okay. Nth Solutions is a product development company, as I mentioned before. And
Mhm.
we also, so we develop, a lot of it now is sensor related technology for all kinds of applications.
Mhm.
We've done traffic signal preemption, we've done automotive industry technology, and then we did the toilet leak detection technology, which then we spun off into a separate company, which is H2O Connected. So
Mhm.
that's how they're related. And then so we have several products at H2O Connected. It's a system that goes inside a toilet tank. The sensors are inside the tank that can detect all the different ways a toilet is wasting water and running up a water bill. So every toilet is going to leak. Sooner or later, it's going to waste water. So in the world where we're trying to, preserve resources, it helps with sustainability. It helps bring home ownership costs down because if you have a leaking toilet, it can add 50, 100, $800 to your water bill. Yeah. So you think a running toilet wastes 5 gallons of water a minute, and that's water and sewer. So, in an area like Coatesville where you pay $44 per 1,000 gallons and, in a 24-hour period, you could waste 7,000 gallons of water. If you're not at home, you don't realize your toilet's running. That's a big deal. That adds up quickly. So, it's we've been selling to hotels and apartment buildings, and we have a device called the Leak Alerter 6000 that's on Amazon for homeowners. So we'll be bringing out a couple of other products soon. So it's growing, and everything's made right here in Coatesville. So it's pretty exciting.
That is absolutely amazing. And I'm going to have to link all of this into the body of the podcast so people can get their Leak Alerter 6000 or their copy of Threads of Wisdom Trailblazers Book 2, which you are in, and tell your whole story. So, where can everybody find you on social media or hook up with you on a website or any of that?
So I have a public page on Facebook. So Susan Springsteen. So you can see me on Facebook. I have a LinkedIn page, also Susan Springsteen. Not very imaginative. So those are the two things to keep tabs on me. And then H2O Connected, its URL, its website is www.leakalertor.pro, leakalertor.pro.com. So that's the brand that we have of products, but that's the website. And then Nth Solutions is www.nth-solutions.com. But that website's kind of old. We're going to be updating that soon. So we have a lot of new products that aren't on there yet. So, but you can get a sense. We also, for anyone who is in the area, Coatesville area or Chester County area, we have a very unique high school internship program. So we usually take 10 to 18 high school interns starting as sophomores or juniors. They work for us 2 to 3 days a week until they graduate from high school. And they work alongside the professionals to learn how to develop products and launch them into the marketplace. And a lot of them end up as named inventors on our patents because they work on the inventive process. So it's pretty cool. Now, most of this is math, physics related, but not all. We're going to probably be expanding that into manufacturing and adding a business track. But yeah, we've been doing that for about 10 years, and we've had over 100 students go through the program. And
that is amazing.
It really helps them differentiate when they're trying to get into their choice school. You know, if you're 18 or 17 and you're an inventor on a income revenue generating patent, that tends to set you apart from the rest of the world.
I'd say so.
So,
Susan, I have had so much fun speaking with you, and we are going to have to catch up sometime.
Right, let's do that.
But I am Tatiana Ryan. This has been the Businessy Podcast with Susan Springsteen. I hope she brought you so much information. I will link everything within the body of the podcast, and you can go directly to her. Thank you so much, Susan.
It's been great. It's good to see you again.
Good seeing you. Have a great day.
You too.